Hello guys, good morning, good evening, depending wherever you're watching me on the globe. Today we are just going to go through the theory paper that we discussed last time. That last time we were supposed to answer some questions of biology theory paper. So I promised you that I'll come with the answers, properly answered questions. So we are just going to go through them and to see how these questions are supposed to be answered. Otherwise, welcome back to my Applied Science channel, and let's just start directly to question 1 so that we see how those questions are supposed to be answered. So last time we were asked the following diagram. Let me just go through the questions and then we see how it is supposed to be answered. How the questions are supposed to be answered. We start with section A as usual, and number 1 was asking the following diagram represents a section of mammalian respiratory system, and it was named E, F, G. So E, it is the trachea, and then the F is the pleura or the pleural cavity, and then we also have G is alveoli. Then the question was asking, the question A, number 1A, identify the region of the mammalian skeleton where the represented section is found. It is found in the neck and the chest region. It is found on the neck and the chest region. And then part F, identify the part labeled F. Part labeled F is the pleura. Then you are told to explain the function of the part labeled F. That part labeled F, as you can see, is the pleural cavity. So the functions of the pleural cavity, it is to lubricate the lungs, cushions them, and facilitate breathing by a smooth, low friction surface. It lubricates the lungs, cushions them, and facilitate the breathing by creating a smooth, low friction surface. Then C, we were told to explain the structural adaptations of the part labeled E and G to their function. We were told to explain the structural adaptations of the parts labeled E and G to their function. So E, let us just go and see E and G to their function. You can be able to see that is the trachea, and then G, it is the alveoli. So you are supposed just to say, if you have known now E is the trachea, E is adapted to maintain an open, clean airway, while G are adapted for efficient gaseous exchange by providing a vast, thin, moist surface with a reach of blood supply. So E is adapted to maintain an open air clean way, while the G, which is the alveoli, are adapted for the efficient gaseous exchange by providing vast, thin, moist surface with rich blood supply. So we were also supposed to answer question D to give the similarity of the part labeled G and the gill filaments. The gill filaments are found in the fish. So the gill filaments, we know the gills are found in the fish, and the gill filaments are also found in the fish. So therefore, G, it is the alveoli. So we are supposed to give the similarities. If you are giving the similarities, you are supposed to use the word they both. So we were supposed to answer that question. So they both provide a large moist surface area for efficient gaseous exchange, which is oxygen uptake and carbon dioxide removal, to occur via diffusion. They both provide a large moist surface area for efficient gaseous exchange, that is oxygen intake or uptake, and carbon dioxide removal to occur via diffusion. Also, they both are also richly supplied with the blood capillaries to transport gases to and from the rest of the body. Let us now proceed to question 2. We see how it is supposed to be answered. So, and it reads, an investigation data on the student's height, blood, and blood groups were collected and presented in the graph H and J as shown. So you can be able to study that. You can see the first data that was placed on the graph. On the y-axis we have the number of students, and then the x-axis we have the height of the students. And on the other sides we have the blood groups and the number of students, which are represented in that graph. So they were represented as follows: A, B, O, AB, blood groups. So we were asked to state the variation, that is 2A Roman 1. State the type of variation illustrated by graph H. It is a normal distribution. As you can see, it is just a normal distribution. So you are supposed to give the reason for your answer in 2A1 above. The reason is graph H shows a bell-shaped curve, which is a characteristic of a normal distribution. The reason is graph H shows a bell-shaped curve, which is a characteristic of a normal distribution. B, explain the advantage of having the greatest proportion of students with blood group O as illustrated in J. So where is J? Let us just go and see that graph. In that J, we can be able to see that the other table, the second table. So we can be able to answer it very well. The students with the blood group O is that it is the universal donor blood group. This means that the student with the blood group O can donate blood to people with other blood. Then we were supposed also to answer question C, 2C. We were told an investigation. After the investigation, a student of blood group O reported that the father and mother are blood group A and B respectively. Use the genetic cross to illustrate this possibly. So you can see the parent, there's parent 1 and parent 2. So parent 1 has got the blood group A. So those ones are the blood group with those are the antibodies. The small letter represents the small a, and the A and B represents the antibodies. So parent 1 has got blood group A and parent 2 has got blood group B. So when you draw it on, if you are asked in an exam, you are supposed just to solve it that way. You just take parent 1 and parent 2, and then you represent your data as shown in the workings that you are seeing. As shown in the Punnett square, the child cannot inherit allele from both parents, resulting in the blood group O. So we are supposed now to go to question 3. In an experiment, students soaked maize seeds in water for 48 hours at a room temperature, tested them for reducing sugar. So we were told to name the reagent the students used to test for reducing sugar. Automatically, all the reagent that is used for testing for reducing sugar, it is always Benedict solution. Benedict solution. So the answer is Benedict solution. So it was just asked that one. That question was only 1 mark. And then you are told B to explain the reasons for soaking the seeds. These seeds were soaked to allow the seeds to imbibe water, which activates enzyme. For example, amylase that breaks down the stored starch into reducing sugars. We know that reducing sugars are always simple sugars. They only have one molecule of sugar. For example, like we have reducing sugars like fructose, glucose. Those are examples of reducing sugars. So let us just go to another question here. C part 2, C number 3. State the observation made by the students during the food test. State the observation made by the students during the food test. The solution turned from blue to green, yellow, orange, or brick red precipitate. So if you just use only a reagent Benedict solution in any given test, and that solution, you hit that solution and then it changes it changes gradually basing on those colors, then the conclusion, you are just supposed to conclude that it is reducing sugar. That solution has reducing sugar. So 3D, explain the soaking of seeds in hot water on the food test results. Soaking on hot water will denature the enzyme needed to break down starch into reducing sugar, resulting in a negative food test, whereby that solution will be able to remain blue after you have heat it thoroughly. It will remain blue. So, E, a sample of maize seeds are planted in soils with a favorable condition but failed to germinate. Suggest the possible causes. Remember, after heating, the seeds were dead. When they were heated, the seeds died. So they were damaged. That's why they failed to germinate. Because the seeds were died, the plumule died, and all kinds of parts within the seeds were dead. So there was no germination. So you just simply answer the seeds were non-viable or were deceased or damaged. Okay? So we went ahead and also answered question 4, whereby we were told in an investigation, students placed a dry cobalt 2 chloride paper on both sides of mesophyte's leaf and covered the strips with sellotape as shown in the following experiment setup. So remember, the mesophytes, they are plants that exist in moderate condition. The moderate conditions, these are in a place whereby water is moderate, and even the temperatures are not very high, and all the conditions that these plants exist, they are moderate. They are just medium. Those plants are called mesophytes. So we were told in this question that state the aim of the experiment. The aim of the experiment was to investigate the presence of water vapor released from the leaf during transpiration. You know transpiration, how to define the term transpiration. Transpiration is the movement of water in water vapor from the leaves to the atmosphere via the stomata. B, remember we are on question 4. B, state the observation the students made on the cobalt chloride paper. The blue cobalt chloride paper turned pink. 2, Roman 2, account the difference in the time taken for the observations to be made on the 2 cobalt chloride papers. The paper on the underside of the leaf turned pink faster because the lower epidermis has more stomata than the upper epidermis, leading to high rate of transpiration from the bottom surface. Let me repeat it, because some of you may have not gotten me clearly. We have been told to account the difference in the time taken for the observations to be made on the 2 chloride papers. The paper on the underside of the leaf turned pink faster because the lower epidermis has more stomata than the upper epidermis, leading to high rate of transpiration from the bottom surface. C, suggest two modifications students will make on the setup to have the observation made within a shorter time. You are told to suggest 2 modifications students will make on the setup to have the observation made within a shorter time. These 2 suggestions are: 1, placing the experimental setup in direct sunlight or warmer area to increase the rate of transpiration. Placing the experiment setup in direct sunlight, warmer area to increase the rate of transpiration. 2, introducing gentle airflows such as fan around the leaf to move the water vapor away from the leaf surface, maintaining the steep concentration gradient and increasing the rate of transpiration. Okay. So we went ahead and answered also question 5. Question 5 was just, we were supposed to answer as follows. We were asked, the following diagram represents the structure of an eye. So we had K, L, M. So, and then also on the other side we have the lens, optic nerve, and the retina. We were told to name the part labeled M. The part labeled M is the cornea. As you can see it the way it is, the cornea. So explain the adaptations of the part labeled L to its function. The part labeled L to its function. So you just say it's opaque to prevent light from passing through except for a pupil. It also contains, explanation number 2, it also contains radial and circular muscles which contracts and relax to adjust the size of the pupil, regulating the amount of light entering the eye. So you see, we were told to describe the events initiated by part labeled K to enable the distant object to be clearly seen. Describe the events initiated in the part labeled K to enable the distant object to be clearly seen. K, ciliary body. The events initiated, it's called the ciliary body. So C-I-L-I-A-R-Y, body. The events initiated when focusing in a distance on a distant objects are ciliary muscles relax, alafu we have the suspensory ligaments become tight, the lens becomes thinner and less convex. 4. The light is refracted less, focusing the image clearly on the retina. Then we are told to state the role of tears in the human eye. Remember, tears plays very important role in the human eye, and it has the following functions in the human eye. It lubricates the surface of the eyeball, or the eyeball, but okay, let me repeat. It lubricates the surface of the eyeball. Then 2, it cleans the surface of the eyeball by washing away dust / foreign particles. It cleans the surface of the eyeball by washing away dust / foreign particles. 3, to prevent the bacteria infection by containing the antiseptic enzymes. So you can imagine. Let me repeat, it prevents the bacteria infections by containing antiseptic enzymes. So we went ahead. Now we are in the section B. Section B, we were told question 6, to answer question 6, which was compulsory, and either question 7 or question 8, that's where you are supposed to choose either one of them. But for this case, we have just decided to answer everything so that we can be able to learn how we can be able to answer. But in an exam, when you have been instructed to answer question 6, and then you choose either one of the question 7 or question 8, just follow instructions. Don't mess up with the instructions. We need to follow instructions in an exam because instructions are also part of the exams. But in this case, we have just decided to answer everything for your good. So we were told question 6 was as follows. During an ecological study, students obtained the following data from a certain ecosystem. We had the trophic levels of organisms, producers, which were, the number were 1,000, primary consumers, the number were 200, secondary consumers, the number were 30, tertiary consumers, the number were 4. So we have been told, use the data in the table below to draw a pyramid of numbers on the grid provided. So it was just 5 marks. So you are supposed now to, when you name, like there, I've named y-axis, it is 1 mark. Y-axis, and then on the other side, you have seen I've named it x-axis. So you can see it has been properly distributed. You are supposed to choose a scale of your own. And this scale, it is supposed to cover all the organisms from the highest to the lowest organisms. And also make sure that the graph that you are drawing, it is supposed to cover the entire 3/4 of your graph so that it can be valid and to follow the requirements of graphical principles. Therefore, we were told, as per above, producers are supposed to be at the base, and they are the ones which are many. As you can see there, I took just on the scale 1 centimeter on the x-axis represents 62.5 units. So that is my scale, and then I use them to plot it. 1000, as you can see, it has represented at the base there, it is 1000, and then followed by the primary consumers, secondary consumers, and the tertiary consumers as the last, just like that. You are told to account for the shape of the pyramid. The shape is due to the decrease in the number of organisms at each successive trophic level. Energy is also transformed from one trophic level to the next, but the transfer is inefficient. Let me repeat. Account for the shape of the pyramid. The pyramid shape is due to the decrease in the number of organisms at each successive trophic level. Also, remember, energy is being transferred from one trophic level to the next, but the transfer is inefficient. Then, C, we were told, if the following organisms were found in the ecosystem presented by the data, we have the eagle, plant, snake, and the mouse. We are told to draw the food chain to illustrate the feeding relationship in this ecosystem. So we have plants, mouse, we have eagle, plant, snakes, and mouse. So plants will be eaten by the mouse, and then the snakes will eat the mouse, and then the eagle will eat the snakes. So remember the arrow points to the eater. Then, which of the organisms will have the least biomass? It is eagle. Explain the effects of severe drought in the population of organisms in the ecosystem. Severe drought will reduce the amount of available plant matter, as plants are highly dependent on water for survival. Mouse will reduce due to the lack of food and water. Also, snake population will also go down. Eagles will decrease. How will predation of snakes lead to an emergence of new species of mice in the ecosystem? Predation by snakes acts as a strong selective pressure on the mouse population. Mice with variation, that is mutation, that helps them avoid predation. These advantages trails are passed on to the offsprings, in increasing their frequency in their population over generations. So the last question of question 6, that is D, describe the method you will use to estimate a population of a particular plant species in the ecosystem. 1, you use a quadrat, which is square frame of known area. For example, 2 meters square. 2, randomly place a quadrat or place it in different places or areas within the ecosystem. This can be done by throwing the quadrat over the shoulder or using a random coordinates. Count the number of coordinates of specific plant within the quadrat each time. Repeat the process several times, e.g. 10 to 25 times, and get a representative sample and calculate the average number of plants per quadrat. And then 7, you are told to describe various functions of lipids in the human body. So if you have been told to describe the functions of lipids in the human body, you are supposed just to start with as follows, because functions of lipids in the human body. In the first place, energy storage it stores energy in our bodies. Lipids, primarily triglycerides, are stored in the adipose tissue and serve as a long-term energy reservoir, releasing more than double energy of carbohydrates per gram. And then too, also, it acts as a very good insulator. Adipose tissue provides thermal insulation, helping to maintain body temperature. And then also protection. Adipose tissue around vital organs acts as a cushion, protecting them from physical injury. And then we also have hormone production. Lipids are precursors for important hormones, including steroids, hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and cortisol. And then absorption of vitamins. Lipids are necessary for absorption and transport of fat, soluble of vitamins, for example, A, D, E, and K. So now we are also being told to describe 7b. Describe how the process of photosynthesis occurs in green plants. Remember, the process of photosynthesis occurs in green plants, and in green plants, they use sunlight, water, carbon dioxide to create a glucose and release oxygen. So, in this case, the process occurs mainly in the leaves, specifically with the organelles called chloroplast, and involves two main stages, that is, light-dependent reactions and light-independent reaction. So light-dependent reaction, this stage takes place in the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast. The chlorophyll absorbs light energy, which is used to split water molecules. This process produces ATP and NADPH. ATP is adenyl triphosphate. This is energy carrying molecules, NADPH, and releases oxygen as a byproduct. Then light independent reaction. This stage occurs in the stroma of chloroplast. In the stroma of the chloroplast, the ATP and NADPH produced in first stages are used to convert oxygen from the air into glucose. The process does not directly require light, but depends on the products of the sunlight reactions. The overall equation is carbon dioxide combines with the water plus light energy to form glucose, but in ionic form. That's why there is that plus. So, last but not least, we were also supposed to answer question 8, whereby we were told to describe how the section of the human digestive system from the mouth to the stomach is adapted to its function. So with adaptations of that digestive system, it has various parts. For example, the mouth, the mouth, the pharynx, and the esophagus, and also we also have the stomach. So in this case, we are just going to start with the mouth. The mouth plays a very important role when it comes to digestion. We have some enzymes which are very responsible for digestion that are found within the mouth. And also physical and mechanical breakdown of food is done in the stomach, in the mouth, whereby teeth plays a very important role when it comes to breaking down of food. So let us just start. The mouth contains teeth for mechanical breakdown of food, that is chewing, and tongue used for mixing. It has salivary glands which releases salivary enzymes for the enzymes amylase, which begins the chemical digestion of starch. And then we have the pharynx, a passageway that directs food into the esophagus and air into the trachea with a flap. That is a flap. That flap is called the epiglottis to prevent choking. Esophagus it's a muscular tube that uses the peristalsis, rhythmic muscle contraction, to push the food balls down to the stomach. And also we have the stomach. It is muscular, J-shaped organ that churns food, mechanically digestion, and secretes gastric juices including hydrochloric acid and enzyme pepsin to begin protein digestion. The stomach lining is protected by thick mucus layer. For those short remarks, we have come to the end of our discussion in as far as Applied Science College is concerned. So next time we shall come up with other questions that we will be able to discuss them thoroughly. But in case if you have any question, you can just leave them down the down the video so that you can be able to get answers. If you have any question, just ask, give some comments down the video, like and subscribe my channel. I'll be coming to you with more videos in my studio in as far as Applied Science College is concerned, and we shall be able to discuss more and to know more about science. Otherwise, have a good afternoon, depending wherever you are watching me on the globe, and we shall meet with you again. Bye-bye and have a good afternoon. Thank you.